All the food is poison. All the food is poison. You know, things aren't always as they seem. Some people believe in fate. Others believe that their deity of choice has a plan for them and what they should do, and that they're just the passenger of their own lives while their deity takes the wheel. I myself believe in the flying spaghetti monster, and I believe everything starts and ends with him. When you die, he'll welcome you back into his delicious noodly arms covered in the most divine Italian gravy you've ever encountered. I grew up in a small apartment with my dad and older brother. My old man worked at a Jell-O plant and was responsible for packaging the gelatin treats in their boxes right off the conveyor belt. He packaged Jell-O, Jell-O pudding, the Jell-O pops, and pudding pops. He did it all over the span of his Jell-O packaging career. It didn't pay that well, and he had an hour-and-a-half drive to and from work. But we didn't go hungry, as he'd sometimes pocket Jell-O instant pudding for my 7-year-old self and my brother, much to our felicity, as we were both big chocolate fanatics. The day after my father's retirement from a long career of packaging the gelatin and the pudding, he let out a long fart and sat me down to give me something. I thought it was going to be a lifetime voucher of Jell-O pudding, but to my chagrin, it was just a VHS tape. "Son, please don't tell anyone about this. It's top secret. But I need you to know what Jell-O has tried to put on the market time and time again. It's really something else," my dad said to me in a hushed tone as he presented me with the outdated media consumption apparatus. My face turned from annoyance to slight confusion with a still very prominent annoyed expression. "What do you mean? Did they try doing toothpaste-flavored pudding?" I half-joked. "Trust me," my father whispered. "If anyone finds out I have this, you bet your ass I'm getting necked. I feel that you deserve to know what gelatin is really like, and it might even help you stay away from Jell-O altogether." "What? Me? Away from Jell-O? You're out of your mind, Pops," I said with a hearty chuckle. "Once you watch the tape, you'll understand." I grew up on Jell-O and E.T. for the Atari 2600s, since we didn't have the money to buy an NES back then. But I wasn't going to part with Jell-O, regardless of how bad things might be. I mean, E.T. for the Atari 2600 is widely regarded as one of the world's worst video games, and I still hold it near and dear to my pudding-laden heart. How bad can things really be? The tape collected dust in my junk drawer for a decade before my father passed away at the age of 75. Things got really rough for me around that time because of the loss, and I did anything and everything I could to try and rekindle that feeling that my father, God rest his soul, was still with me in some form. Alas, I was going through all of his belongings and keeping everything that was sentimentally valuable to me, and that's when I remembered the tape. I finally decided that I would watch the tape my father gave me the day after his retirement. It was his wish that I view its contents after all, and in my grieving state, I would do anything to please my pop. After sniffing back some snot that threatened to pour from my nose, and after a few tears fell, I stood up and went to my junk drawer in my desk, retrieving the VHS cassette. I went to my attic, pulled out our old VCR that was stored in one of the many dusty tote bins, and one violent sneezing fit and an EpiPen jab to my thigh later, I opened the system, cleaned the heads, and made sure all was in working order. Finally, the VCR was hooked up and ready to play any tape that was fed into it. I looked at the label on the cassette, which was just an abbreviation. JBP-BC, with a year of 1987 scrawled in black ballpoint pen. I stuck the tape in the VCR and hit play. Man, oh man, the only thing I can say right now is my father wasn't lying about the hateful truth of Jell-O. The tape opened with a jazzy late 80s track played to white text on a blue gradient background. The following is a pitch of a new Jell-O product for your consideration. Brought to you by Jell-O spokesperson Bill Cosby. We hope you enjoy it. What the fuck? A rejected Jell-O pitch featuring disgraced comedian Bill Cosby? I was already uncomfortable with this premise, as if it's rejected and has Cosby, a known rapist, attached to it, then it can't spell anything good. The video then did a cheap shuffle transition to a kitchen set on a soundstage. Cosby walked in as the jazz music faded into the background at a lower volume. Cosby's face was stern, and he was wearing the ugliest abstract patterned sweater I'd ever seen in my life. It was so ugly that it made me vomit in my mouth a little bit, and I had to swallow it back down. Cosby walked behind the counter and placed both hands on the countertop. "Good day," Cosby began. "Today, I want to show you a new product that will change not only the face of the company, but it will also change the entire world as we know it." Cosby leered. "I passed by a homeless man on my way to work today. He rattled his tin can in my face." He held out his hand and shook it violently as if he were rattling the aforementioned tin can. "Ring-a-ling-a-ding-dong dagger!" Cosby shouted as his eyes grew to the size of dinner plates about to roll out of his sockets. "Ring-a-ding-a-ding!" Damn it. He slapped the countertop and took a deep gasp of breath. I opened a packet of Jell-O pudding and poured it into his mouth. He suffocated on pudding and died. Ring-a-ling-a-ding! He grabbed a wad of cooked noodles out of his pocket and flung them at the camera before giving it the middle finger. "You want to make a popsicle out of human blood?" Cosby screamed, leaning over the counter at the camera zooming into his crazed face, into the wrinkles on his forehead, his eyebrows raised way high. "Let me get you hip to this new product that will surely catch on. We call it Jell-O Blood Pops." Cosby took out a dagger and a glass bowl. "We'll first need a sacrifice." Cosby looked around the soundstage before throwing the dagger offset at a person behind the cameraman. The camera panned to the other side where the crew sits, revealing that the dagger pierced the director in his throat. The director's eyes widened as he grabbed at the dagger before collapsing, blood trickling from his throat. Whoa, what the fuck? Did Cosby kill the person on camera and it was covered up by Jell-O and General Foods this whole time? Genital Foods. "We'll have to make quick work of this one," Bill Cosby said as he dragged the dead director onto the set. He straddled the body and pulled the dagger out of his throat. He slid the bowl over, grabbed one of the director's wrists, and cut his hand open, letting the blood pour into the bowl. "Yeah, that's it. Fill her up, you son of a bitch." Cosby spat as the director's blood poured and poured away. Once the bowl was full, he kicked the body away, the body sliding out of frame and hitting what sounded like a bunch of pots and pans as I could hear lots of clattering and clanking. "Jell-O!" Cosby shrieked as he pranced back to the counter with the bowl of blood. He took out Jell-O branded popsicle molds and poured the blood into each mold, complete with a popsicle stick in each one. I could hear a weak groaning off screen, and Bill shifted his gaze to his right, where the director's body laid. He grabbed more spaghetti out of his pocket and flicked it at maximum force towards the body. "Boo!" he shouted as he flung the noodles. "Have some creepy pasta!" Now, what the shit was going on? What the fresh sweet fuck is this pitch? Jell-O would never, ever, ever greenlight something like this. Cosby losing his mind and making popsicles out of human blood? This is the most fucked up, sadistic, downright evil thing I have ever had the most absolute displeasure of witnessing. Cosby set the molds in the freezer behind him and turned around, his eyes bulging and wide as he went to the stove to his right and turned on the heat. He set down a large saucepan and began boiling some water. He threw in packets of Jell-O pudding, leftover human blood, sugar, 4 large McDonald's Sprites, Flintstone vitamins, bits of brain matter, a rutabaga, carrots, a Dave's single, and a whole pepperoni pizza. He stirred the ungodly concoction and chugged it whole. "Yibba jibba jar jar binks!" Cosby tilted his head to the sky and let out an earth-shattering belch before going completely bonkers. He screamed, running around the set, waving the dagger around, eating a sour grapefruit, hopping around on a pogo stick, and scatting in incoherent gibberish while waving his hands around. He then deep-throated an entire 10-inch skillet while his eyeballs pulse in and out of their sockets. He deep-throated the pan for an entire 15 minutes. Why the fuck was he performing oral on a pan for this long? The world may never know. All I know is that after about 10 minutes, the camera stopped moving and I heard eating from behind the camera. After putting 2 and 2 together, I deduced that the cameraman got tired of filming Cosby doing the gawk on a pan and went to eat lunch. After 15 minutes, the disgraced comedian threw down the skillet and rushed to the freezer to retrieve the now completely frozen blood pops. "Jibba jab, jingle my bells, the pops are done." He spat everywhere when he enunciated the P. Saliva sprang violently from his lips and frothing at the mouth. He retrieved the pops from the freezer, which was turbo cold. When I mean turbo cold, I mean that the entire ice box was frozen completely solid. When Cosby pulled out the pops, his right hand froze solid as well and just fell off. "Friggity friggin' frostbite, man! This friggity flu fell off!" Cosby screamed, doing a small dance with some fancy footwork, may I add, spazzing out about the loss of his hand. He grabbed the pops with his other hand and set them on the counter as the unthinkable happened. Very, very closely, I could see what looked like another hand regenerating from the stump attached to his wrist. What the fuck? Cosby's a lizard man? This is inconceivable. This is crazier than the time my brother swallowed a rubber chicken which caused him to squeak every time he coughed until we got to the hospital. The new hand regenerated and grew back in place of the old one. Cosby flexed his fingers and went right back to the pops. He took one out of the mold and gave it a quick lick with his forked tongue, his forked reptilian tongue. This was getting too much for me, and I shut down the VCR. I made my favorite bedtime snack, room temperature Nestle Quick, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up and discovered the tape was on pause. What the hell? I thought I turned the whole VCR off What's going on? I made my morning coffee and sat down at the television wondering how the fuck it turned itself back on. I decided that maybe I didn't shut the tape off and just paused it so I could watch it later. So that's what I did. Cosby finished sucking down the blood-based frozen dessert and licked his lips, smacking them rapidly.
Zip-zop, blood pop. Tasting blood pops to rot your soul. Take evil to the top.
Cosby's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. They were so wide. The camera zoomed in again, zooming in on his mouth.
Blood pops.
Cosby spat, spraying spittle all over the place again.
Blood pop, blood pop, blood pop, blood pop, blood pop, blood pop.
He began saying rapidly, spouting more saliva from his mouth. He was covering the entire countertop in his frothy dribble. This was downright petrifying. I didn't want to see Bill Cosby spitting all over a marble kitchen countertop.
The dadgum pudding! The dadgum pudding is alive!
Cosby vomited up Jell-O pudding and it began to rapidly grow small lizards with Cosby faces that sneered up at the disgraced former comedian.
Ah! The lizards! Don't let them spread! They'll breed with humans!
Cosby smashed a few of the tiny lizard men with a Jell-O cookbook before they jumped onto the comedian and attacked his eyes.
Not the eyes! Ah! Not my eyes!
Cosby's eyes began to fall out of their sockets and the lizard men feasted on them as Bill Cosby stumbled around the studio, knocking plates over, silverware, knocking over the stove, ripping cupboard doors off of their hinges as he tried to find his way around. He slid up in some Jell-O pudding and dropped to the floor.
Get the gas! Get the gas!
Cosby shrieked as he clutched his empty eye sockets. The soundstage then began to fill up with a purple gas that seemed to incapacitate the small lizard men as they tore ass around the kitchen. They dropped like flies and Cosby was dragged out of view. The tape ended with a shot of Bill Cosby getting eye replacement surgery, and it then cut to him stumbling out of the empty hospital room, mumbling about Jell-O blood pops and lizard children, while traipsing the hospital halls in the dark before the tape fades to black. White text then appeared on a black background. General Foods has approved Jell-O blood pops for public release. Manufacturing begins April 4th, 1988. What the fuck? They actually approved this fucked up product pitch by Bill Lizard Cosby? I leaned back in my chair in disbelief. I felt like I'd pissed my pants. I felt something warm trickle around my crotch region. I looked down and realized I had spilled my coffee on myself. Well, that's just fucking great. I stood up, cleaned my pants off, and went to my kitchen sink to wash my hands. When I looked out the window overlooking my backyard as I washed my hands, I swore I could see Bill Cosby himself peeking at me from behind one of the trees, holding a box of Jell-O blood pops, pointing and laughing at me in an intimidating, "You know my secret and you better not tell anyone" manner. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, I got a call from the funeral home that was in possession of my father's body. The funeral was the day after this one, so I was expecting a call, but I wasn't expecting what was to come of this call. The funeral home worker on the line said, "Your father is missing." I shook my head in disbelief. Missing? We checked his body this morning to prepare him for the funeral, but his body wasn't there. It was replaced with a mold of his body made out of Jell-O. Indeed, my father turned into Jell-O post-mortem, and I'm sure he's up in spaghetti heaven right now, smiling his Jell-O-y smile with his Jell-O-y face and his Jell-O-y body, smiling down at me as I tell the whole world about the sickening acts that the Jell-O brand supports. I'm probably next. I did swear off Jell-O products and don't consume them anymore. Though there is something telling me constantly that they're on to me. That they'll turn me into Jell-O as well, with just the snap of a finger. Jell-O? More like hell no.